Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, and welcome back to the second segment of Finding Me Today with Ms. Vandana Shiva. She spoke about the challenges that ordinary people face from the corporates, and that's why for many of you who've watched previous shows of mine, you can understand that there is no true democracy today, because most of the country's power struggle happens within the corporates, the transnationals. These are the people, the organizations, etc., who actually control the policies, like the kind of infrastructure, etc., that is brought into our governments, that is passed for ordinary people to then just maybe perhaps make do with it, and it is not the voice of the people. And Ms. Shiva, as you were speaking about the role of these organizations, Monsanto, transnational corporations, major corporations, etc., who come in and dictate policy, who make sure that through some way or the other they get governments to buy into their particular scheme, if I may call it, because what you've just said now is really not broadcasted in the mainstream media. You don't know about these things, you don't hear about it. You hear farmers are committing suicide because they have debt, and so you think, okay, they're borrowing too much or whatever, or that there was a drought, etc. But there are external circumstances that are feeding into this. So now, how do you challenge this? And I mean, India is such a big country, and there genuinely are very many problems inside of India. And if you look at in terms of environment, your corruption, the caste system, etc., how do you filter through all of these facets and like start changing the mindset and get people to buy into what you're saying and not what because India loves power, and I mean, I think ordinary people get caught in, if you look at movies, Bollywood, and how they get caught into this dream life, So will they believe you, or will they believe what they see on the TV screens or from these elites or well-dressed, personalities, etc.?
With two issues. One, Monsanto is not just of relevance to India. It has become the biggest global seed corporation, but it is destroying democracy everywhere. Even in the heart of the United States, it is preventing citizens from knowing what they eat by preventing labeling laws. And Vermont got a labeling law, and they're threatening to sue them. So food democracy is being absolutely throttled for the profits and power of this one
corporation.
How do we deal with the multifaceted problems and threats? I've been going at this for 40 years, and the first inspiration for me is just very deep love for life on earth and the people, who all want to have a life.
Yes.
None of them want to have to see a baby die because there was no clean water, or a husband commit suicide because the debt became so much, which needn't have happened. The second thing that keeps me going and inspires me is taking the right action. Because as our ancient Gita says, you do not have control over the results of your action. But what you can decide,
your choice,
is choose the right action. And the right action is, of course, decided by the context, and it's decided by having a conscience that's very alive as a guide, and is stronger than all the powers of the external world, which is where you get courage, which is where you get fearlessness. But I believe it is also where you get insights, where you get the wisdom and the anchor to know the right path. So when I realized in '87 how totally the corporations wanted to control our seed and our food through patenting, which means owning the seed, claiming they've created it, and they said we have to do GMOs because that means patent. And I said, okay, GMOs means God move over, because we are now the creator, is what these companies are saying.
Yes.
And I got a chill thinking of how they wanted to replace all of creation, all faith, the creator, all of farmers' innovation, all of women's intelligence, just erase it all for a few years of collecting royalties. How pathetic can that be? So I decided that day I was going to save seeds. And we've created 110 community seed banks.
Wow.
These seed banks allow farmers to have access to their own seed.
But this is only in India, or is it worldwide?
Well, I started in India,
Yeah,
but
okay.
now the inspiration is going worldwide.
Okay, that's
And the
fantastic.
seed freedom movement,
Okay.
which is now very global, has blocked very much the kind of laws that forced apartheid on South Africa. I remember on another 9/11, 1906, Gandhi did his first satyagraha, his first fight for truth. And it was against the compulsory registration on the basis of race. Because the apartheid regime was based on
yes, that's
discrimination
right,
on the basis
yeah.
of race. And he said, no, we will not be divided. We are one citizenry. We are equal, and we will not wear these badges of identity.
Right.
So
Similarly, yeah.
these laws are very similar. And he said, we will not obey. Gandhi also, inspired by his life here in South Africa, wrote the most amazing book, Hind Swaraj, on the ship from England to South Africa. And that book has been my little gospel. Not because every line is translatable for today, it's more than a century ago, but because he defines real freedom. Real freedom as the right action, as the right livelihood. Real freedom as knowing how to distinguish between oppression and that self-organized responsibility which you need to take. And so we call our seed freedom Beat Swaraj.
Beat Swaraj.
Because Swaraj was the word he used.
Okay.
We call food sovereignty Anna Swaraj.
Okay.
We call our water democracy Jal Swaraj.
Wow.
We call our earth democracy the old word of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are all one earth family.
Yes. I know, because when I interviewed Sriram Chali, as I was telling you, he spoke about this notion of Ubuntu that Africans have but that Indians haven't, and that's exactly what you've just said, that we are all one family. But as you were speaking, I was thinking about your book, Soil, Not Oil, Climate Change, Peak Oil and Food Insecurity. What is the motivation behind this? Because it's the winner of the Right Livelihood Award, 1993, things like this.
That particular book I wrote because the climate conventions were being derailed. The climate treaty is really to reduce the emissions caused by an industrial system based on fossil fuels and oil. And nobody was talking about food and agriculture. As I've written in this book, 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from an industrial model of farming, the kind Monsantos of the world want to promote, the kind that the Alliance for the Green Revolution in Africa wants to push. Carbon dioxide from fossil fuels, nitrogen oxides from chemical fertilizers, and methane from factory farms. Now, 40% of the disaster is coming from the same kind of agriculture that is displacing the peasantry, allowing the legitimacy of land grab in Africa, allowing the imposition of GMO seeds against the sovereign will of the people of Africa, destroying the water bodies and polluting them, and worse, at the end of the day, giving us all the health problems and the hunger and malnutrition problems. 1 billion people are hungry, 2 billion are suffering from diseases of obesity and diabetes. And like India, South Africa now is so badly hit by
Obesity.
obesity and type 2 diabetes, which is induced by a bad food system. It's not an oil-based system, a system in which instead of eating nourishment and food, we are eating oil, literally, is not good for the planet, it's not good for people. Yes, the oil interests are big, the genetic engineering interests are big, but I believe the life of the planet and the life of people and democracy are bigger.
Yes.
And that's why, to me, they look like dwarfs compared to this beautiful earth that we have to protect.
And I love that, and we're almost at the end. We've got basically a minute left. If you can quickly give us, a last piece of wisdom so that the viewers can reflect on that.
But given that South Africa is a land of such diversity, both biological and cultural, it's a land where the anti-apartheid movement got rid of such a crazy idea of a rule based on treating diversity as a problem rather than a celebration. I do hope from South Africa we will see the birth of a new development model for the 21st century, where women, nature, the diversity of people, the children, the future are at the center.
Thank you very much, and that is very, very inspiring. So I want to once again thank you for being here and for sharing this with us. And we look forward to having you in South Africa more often, okay?
I hope
and
so.
share your wisdom, and we want to see seed banks, etc.
I
growing
hope so
here.
too. I hope that South Africa will be an organic country with lots of diversity.
I hope so too. We're facing many challenges. You know, the corporates also dictate very many of our policies. But with that, we have to say, fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining me.